Do you want to pass the PT in 2025? Well, of course you do. So let's cut to the chase. Here's how you do it. Learn from your mistakes. Wait, I know that learning from your mistakes sounds simple, but let me explain. In today's class, I'll show you some of the biggest mistakes PTE test takers make in each section of the test. How you can avoid them and reveal to you how learning from your mistakes will help you pass the PTE in 2025. It includes a test checklist, test overview, study plan, test tips, and bonus practice questions for each section. To download it, click the link in the description or comments. So let's start by looking at 1 o'clock of the biggest PTE speaking mistakes. In PTE, speaking read aloud can be tricky because you only have 30 to 40 seconds to read the text aloud. This means that you need to make the most of your preparation time. The biggest mistake I see test takers make is that they don't take the preparation time seriously. They think that they're familiar with English and they can just read the text aloud without a problem. So how can you avoid this mistake? To avoid this mistake, you need to take the preparation time seriously and make sure you use the 30 to 40 seconds wisely. Let me explain. First, break down the text into meaningful chunks. Okay, so you've got your read aloud text. Now you need to break down the text into meaningful chunks. This will help you to read the text more fluently and with better intonation. Next, identify keywords to emphasize. This will help you to keep the listener engaged and make sure they understand the main points of the text. Finally, rehearse in your head. This will help you to get a feel for the text and make sure you are comfortable with saying it aloud. Let's take a look at an example task. So here's a short read aloud text. Let's see how we can break it down into meaningful chunks. Identify keywords to emphasize and rehearse in our heads. Okay, so first let's break down the text into meaningful chunks. We can do this by looking for natural pauses in the text. For example, we could break the text down like this. An increasing amount of research is showing that symptoms of anxiety might be helped by taking steps to regulate the microorganisms in our gut using probiotic and non-probiotic food and supplements. The research has indicated that the gut microbiota, the trillions of microorganisms in the gut, can help regulate brain function and even anxiety through something called the gut-brain axis. Next, let's identify keywords to emphasize. We can do this by looking for words that are important to the meaning of the text. For example, we could emphasize the following words: increasing regulate probiotic non-probiotic food and supplements anxiety gut-brain axis. Finally, we need to rehearse the text in our heads. We can do this by reading the text silently and imagining how we would say it out loud. Let's take a listen to what it should sound like. An increasing amount of research is showing that symptoms of anxiety might be helped by taking steps to regulate the microorganisms in our gut using probiotic and non-probiotic food and supplements. The research has indicated that the gut microbiota, the trillions of microorganisms in the gut, can help regulate brain function and even anxiety through something called the gut-brain axis. How did you find the read aloud task? Have you made this mistake before? Let me know in the comments if you have or if you would like to share another PTE speaking mistake. Let's now look at 1 o'clock of the biggest PTE writing mistakes. For PTE writing, write essay can be tough because you have to write a well-organized, grammatically correct essay in a limited amount of time. One of the biggest mistakes I see is test takers presenting only one side of the argument. To really impress the examiners, you need to show you've considered the issue from all angles. So how can you avoid this mistake to bump up your score? Acknowledge those opposing viewpoints. It's all about showing a well-rounded understanding of the topic. First, acknowledge the counter-argument. Okay, so you've brainstormed your main points. Now take a moment to think. What would someone who disagrees with me say? Jot down a few counter-arguments. Next, refute or qualify the counter-argument. So address those counter-arguments in your essay. You can either refute them, explain why they're wrong, or qualify them. Acknowledge their validity, but explain why your viewpoint is stronger. Finally, demonstrate a balanced perspective. By doing this, you demonstrate a balanced perspective and critical thinking skills. This is essential for a high score in PTE writing. Let's take a look at an example task. So here's an essay prompt and 2 responses. One makes the mistake of presenting only one side while the other demonstrates a balanced approach. Prompt: music is as important as other subjects in schools. To what extent do you agree with this statement? Support your point of view with reasons and examples from your own experience. Let's start with the weak response. Notice how it only focuses on the benefits of music education. Music has been an important aspect of all cultures for thousands of years. Some people argue that it has an important place in schools, especially preschools, while others disagree. This essay will argue that while music is an essential component of early schooling, it has less relevance in the later years. Music helps people to relax, and it takes the focus away from day-to-day worries and concerns. In many cultures, it is used to celebrate various events. Young children benefit from interacting with music for cultural reasons and also simply to relax and enjoy themselves. Preschoolers in particular benefit from the simple language of music. Music education in preschool provides a foundation for developing crucial fine motor skills. Young children, through activities like playing simple instruments or clapping, rhythmically enhance their hand-eye coordination and dexterity. These actions strengthen small muscle control, which is essential for tasks like writing, drawing, and even buttoning clothes. Therefore, incorporating music into early childhood education not only fosters creativity and enjoyment but also cultivates essential physical development in a fun and engaging way. This essay argued that music is important for cultural reasons and for recreation and should be taught in preschools, but that it is less necessary in later schooling. I believe that some people have a passion for music and schools should offer an option to continue learning music, but that it isn't necessary for all students. Now let's look at the strong response. Can you see how it acknowledges counter-arguments and addresses them? It's in the second body paragraph. On the other hand, as children grow older, their range of interest grows and they have many ways of relaxing. In the last few years of schooling in particular, they begin to think about future careers, and for most this means that other subjects will take more prominence. There will be little time in the busy school curriculum for music. Older school children can still access music despite it no longer being taught to them. Pause the video now if you want to read the full strong response. Did you also notice the structure in the strong response? It included an introduction, 2 body paragraphs and a conclusion. Let's now look at 1 o'clock of the biggest PTE listening mistakes. In PTE listening and specifically the summarized spoken text task, you'll hear a short lecture or conversation and then have to summarize the main points in your own words. The biggest mistake I see is test takers getting lost in the details and missing the main idea. Don't write a summary that's long, confusing, and misses the point. So how can you avoid this mistake? To avoid this, focus on identifying the main idea and key supporting points. Let me explain. First, listen for the main idea. As you listen, ask yourself what is the speaker's main point. Try to identify the overall message they're trying to convey. Next, identify key supporting points. These are one of the most important pieces of evidence or arguments the speaker uses. Finally, ignore minor details. Don't get bogged down, and minor details are examples. Focus on the big picture. Let's take a look at an example task. But first, let's listen to the audio. Listen now. Infectious diseases are still the main cause of human suffering and death around the world. Every year, millions of people die of diseases such as TB, malaria and HIV. But we are coming up with ways to protect ourselves against these diseases. We have drugs and vaccines, and we are conscious. We learn from our experiences and come up with creative solutions. We used to think we were alone in this, but now we know we are not. There are a lot of animals out there that can do it, too. Chimpanzees can use plants to treat their intestinal parasites. And even more interesting than that is recent discoveries are telling us that insects and other little animals with smaller brains can use medication, too. As part of my job, I spend a lot of time in the greenhouse growing milkweed, a plant specifically for monarch butterflies. They're extremely picky eaters. Luckily, there are several species of milkweed that they can use, and all these milkweeds have carotenoids in them, chemicals that are toxic. They're toxic to most animals, but not to monarchs. In fact, monarchs can take up the chemicals in their own bodies, and it makes them toxic against their predators, such as birds. Monarchs advertise this toxicity through their wing color of orange, black and white. Pause the video now on the transcript if you want to look at it in detail. Remember, on test day you will not be able to see the transcript. And here are the two summaries. One focuses on minor details and would be poorly scored, while the other accurately captures the main idea and would achieve a high score. Let's start with the weak summary. Notice how it gets sidetracked by details about monarch butterflies. The speaker talks about how humans and animals protect themselves against diseases. Humans use drugs and vaccines, while chimpanzees use plants to treat intestinal parasites. Insects and other small animals with smaller brains can also use medication. The speaker then talks about monarch butterflies, which are picky eaters and only eat milkweed. Milkweed has carotenoids, which are toxic chemicals. Monarchs can tolerate these chemicals and use them to become toxic against predators. They advertised this toxicity through their wing color. Now let's look at the high-scoring strong summary. Can you see how it concisely captures the main point? The speaker was discussing humans' ability to learn and to protect ourselves from diseases. She mentioned our use of drugs and vaccines. Then she described how some animals such as chimpanzees have similar abilities. She talked about toxic milkweed and how monarch butterflies consume it. She discussed how they use it as protection from predators like birds. Finally, she suggested that monarchs signal this by their wing coloring. Notice in the weak summary, it says chimpanzees use plants to treat intestinal parasites. Insects and other small animals with smaller brains can also use medication. There are too many fine details here in the strong sample. It summarized this as some animals such as chimpanzees have similar abilities to humans. And look here in the weak sample, it says milkweed has carotenoids, which are toxic chemicals. This has been shortened to toxic milkweed in the strong sample. So you see, in a summary we need to give the big picture or overall idea, but not every little detail. Now let's move on to the final section, reading. And one of the biggest mistakes that test takers make in PT reading multiple choice questions can be tricky, especially when they ask about specific details from the text. The biggest mistake I see is test takers jumping to conclusions without carefully analyzing the question and answer choices. So how can you avoid this mistake? To avoid this, take your time and make sure you understand exactly what the question is asking. Let me explain. First, read the question carefully. Pay close attention to keywords in the question. What specific information is it asking for? Next, analyze the answer choices. Don't just skim the answer choices. Carefully consider each option and how it relates to the text. Finally, refer back to the text. Don't rely on your memory. Go back to the relevant section of the text and find evidence to support your answer. So here's an example multiple choice question. Number 2 volcanoes are the same, but they all form in the same handful of ways. All, it seems, except for the ancient volcano that forms the base of Bermuda. After examining rocks from deep under the island, scientists discovered that this quiet volcano formed in a way that is so far completely unique. The team examined a long pillar of rock which was drilled from the island back in 1972. The sample had been kept in storage at Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia and was gathering dust. While the team suspected something unusual must be going on, a comprehensive geochemical assessment of the rock took them completely by surprise. Question: what does the author say is most interesting about the sample of rock from Bermuda? Number 1. It proves that Bermuda formed as a result of a volcano. Number 2. It provides unexpected evidence on how Bermuda was formed. Number 3. The sample shows that the volcano is active. Number 4. It lay unused for many years and has become dusty. Let's look at the first option. It says it proves that Bermuda formed as a result of a volcano. Is this correct? Let's look back at the text. Can you find the relevant part of the text? That's right, it says this quiet volcano formed in a way that is so far completely unique. So the text says the volcano formed in a unique way, but it doesn't say the rock sample proves Bermuda formed from a volcano. Let's look at the second option. It says it provides unexpected evidence on how Bermuda was formed. So we know Bermuda was formed in a unique way. What else does the text say about the sample of rock? In particular, it says geochemical assessment of the rock took them completely by surprise. Here we can see that being taken completely by surprise. Examining the rock that forms Bermuda means the same thing as providing unexpected evidence about the way it formed. By comparing the answer option with the text carefully, we know that this option is the correct answer. By analyzing the question and answer choices and always referring back to the text to compare the two carefully, you can avoid misinterpretations and choose the correct answer. So how can learning from your mistakes help you pass PTE in 2025? As you've seen, these are just some of the most common mistakes test takers make during your test preparation. You too will also make mistakes, but that's okay. Make sure you take time to stop and improve so that you don't make that mistake again. Some of you may be thinking, I make so many mistakes it's going to take me forever to look at each mistake. Well, let me explain. Imagine you've taken a PT reading practice test and you only got half the questions correct. There's definitely some room for improvement. Now it may seem like it'll take too long to go over all the questions you answered incorrectly to work out what went wrong for each. But imagine if you don't do that, you'll keep doing practice questions or take another practice test and get the same results. And you'll just keep going like that forever without seeing much of a difference. But if you tackle each mistake one by one, you'll be sure to improve, and that'll save you time in the long run. Now, if you are wanting to fast, please let me know in the comments if you've made any PTE mistakes before and how you can improve or have improved from them. Good luck with your PTE preparation in 2025 and see you next time.